What's good, my people? Welcome into the live edition of Buckets presented by the Action Network. Not presented by, but this is the Action Network. These are the guys. We're presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Of course, I am your host, Sean Little, and I brought my dog, Jim Turvey, with me, but we got to pay the bills. Right now, BetMGM is the Buckets is presented by BetMGM. Excuse me. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5 for new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. As I was cutting off, because we had to do what we had to do for our guys over at BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Sean Little, Jim Turvey here to break down a phenomenal evening in hoops, and it's continuing right now as, of course, the Celtics and Nuggets are rolling in Denver. But Jim Turvey, first of all, how you doing? Are you as excited to talk about Anthony Ant-Man Edwards as I am?
Dude, talk about like a perfect like coming together of storylines. We had like the cat injury, so we're already looking Wolves to chat up, and then great game. And Ant, I mean, come on, bumping his head on the rim for the game-saving block. I mean, it did really feel like, I've got a buddy, a good friend of mine, Wolves fan. We've been chatting, what would you want to see if Cat left town? This is kind of like if Cat left town, what does this look like? It looks like Ant taking 35 shots, them winning on the road, and him, kind of going Superman mode. So if you're a Wolves fan, I think you gotta be pretty ecstatic with that first game from him and the team as a whole, honestly.
Yeah, no doubt. Everybody, thanks for tuning in live for this edition of Buckets. Drop any questions in the chat. We'll try to get to them. But let's talk about that Timberwolves Pacers game, 113-111 final. Minnesota gets the W. Anthony Ant-Man Edwards, this is the line. 44 points on 18 of 35 shooting, 6 rebounds, 3 dimes, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and one of the blocks was to close out the game. Let's talk about the last 90 seconds, Jim Turvey. This is my notebook on the last 90 seconds watching Anthony Edwards close out the Indiana Pacers essentially by himself. The best part about it for me is he showed the versatility in his offensive game in 3 straight dagger offensive possessions. We had the catch and shoot triple, no problem. You want to give me some space? I'll knock this down from deep, all nylon. Then he comes down on the next possession, off the dribble, creates some space, a little mid-range. Thank you very much. I'll knock this down. That's 5 straight points. And then the very next possession does a little dribble drive, one-legged floater. Easy, no problem. Get it out the net. 3 straight possessions showing you how versatile he is on offense and how dangerous flat out he is. Then, of course, he closes the game with a block. Not even a chase down block because he's essentially in view the entire time. You know what the difference is in this block, JT, is that so many people right there go up with their right hand and they're late and they don't get to it and it ends up being a goaltend, or they catch him with a bunch of body and it's a
Well, yeah,
foul.
you go with the right, you come across, you hit him with the
Yes,
body. Exactly.
exactly. Anthony Edwards' lead arm was the left, so he went up with the left and immediately caught it. And he was so quick to get up to the rock. That's why he bumped his head on the on the rim, and had that scary fall that he essentially just shook off and hopped up
It's
and
nice to be young,
continued.
man.
Yes, and continued to chirp to the crowd in Indiana that I'm the man and this is what I do, is what he essentially was saying over and over again. Talk to me about those offensive sequences that I just laid out and the block. Just the guy is an absolute animal. A lot of people on the chatter on the interweb is potentially the best Anthony Edwards game of his young career.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Wolves have had those kind of tight game offensive struggles this game. So again, to the theme of if you're a Wolves fan, overall the news wasn't great today. We just got the news Cat's out at least a month. We'll talk through that in a little bit. But this is like, this will make you feel a little better. You were losing some sleep over Cat, but it looks like Ant is, maybe ready to like make a little mini leap within this. Sometimes a star, like a fellow star player going out for a bit opens up some usage, opens up just, a little confidence. Not that Ant's lacking in confidence ever.
Yeah.
But I mean, it showed tonight. 35 field goal attempts is no joke, man. And he at times he can force stuff even at the end of the game. But I think that if I'm a Wolves fan, I want him forcing stuff rather than Cat forcing stuff. Just to be honest, I like his bag a lot more than Cat's, especially late in the game. Cat. You don't want to dive too deep into the mental, the mental psyche of players, but I just think Ant has the killer attitude. And to your point on the block, man, I think the block is so key because he's a guy who the defensive ceiling. I'm a big fan of greatest of all talk. Ben Golliver and Andrew Sharp, and over there, they're always talking about, especially Andrew Sharp. It's like if you look at the history of the league, very often the best athlete in the league is the best player in the league. MJ and LeBron are, incredibly smart players, incredibly gifted in many ways, but they're also just like the most athletic dudes. It's a sport where it really helps to be unbelievably athletic. There's a case that Ant's the most athletic dude in the league right now. I mean, think about him at the All-Star game, shooting with the left, right? We were giving him a little crap. Wemby was out there being a little pissed off that maybe he wasn't taking it serious enough. But he's got that kind of ambidextrous nature. So him going up with the left, he didn't even think twice, right? And you were making a great point. He goes with the right, he fouls the guy probably. So it kind of like that second nature skill, athleticism, intelligence, whatever you want to call it, that Anthony Edwards has that was on full display tonight. And man, he's fun to watch when he is really in his element.
Without question. I had a buddy that was at the game. Shout out my guy, Ben Eder. He was in the field house in Indianapolis. By the way, that is the best basketball stadium in the NBA. If you've never been there to watch a game, it's a great place to watch a basketball game. Make your way down to Indianapolis. But he sent me a text. First of all, something we didn't even mention, like the first possession of the game, Anthony Edwards goes out and goes to the locker room. And it's like, oh no, he's hurt. He's not going to be out there. This is going to be a tough game for Minnesota to pull off. And verbatim, my buddy who was in the building and I was watching, he messages me and says, it's ridiculous. This guy, Anthony Edwards, is born to hoop. He came out, he looks pretty lethargic, and he has 26 points, and we're in the third quarter. Like the guy is just a natural born hooper. And once you mentioned LeBron and those guys being the best athlete, but being the best athletes, but of course that mental element then takes them over the hill. This guy is so young, he's still figuring out the mental side of it, but on pure athleticism and drive, when he's engaged, he is very, very difficult to stop. I mean, the big question mark, right, coming in about Minnesota and about Anthony Edwards was, how are they going to close fourth quarters? What are they going to do to close games? Well, if Anthony Edwards is going to do that and can do that consistently, that question is going to be moot because he gets it done and can get it done. All right, let's move over to Karl Anthony Towns. It's announced meniscus injury. Looks like the timeline to get back hopefully is short, but they're announcing, it's out there, that potentially as short as a month. We'll reevaluate in 4 weeks for Karl Anthony Towns. JT, for you in Minnesota, how big of a loss is this? And is it imperative that he gets back before potentially even the first round of the playoffs?
Yeah, I think you can really cut this both ways, honestly, because I do think that there is a part of this team, I mean, don't get me wrong, they've been, arguably the best team in the league in the Western Conference this season. They're right up there. I think right now they actually have like a half game lead, atop the West right now. So you definitely can make no qualms with how they've played. But Cat does feel like of the players on the Wolves, if you're going to go without a guy for a month, maybe the guy you could survive his injury a little bit more than Gobert, who's so central to the defense, or Ant, who's really essential to the offense. Cat's he's having a really good defensive year. He obviously is like one of the best shooting bigs of all time. So don't get me wrong, that he helps their ceiling a ton. And for the postseason, they aren't going to get far without him. But I think for this little stretch, I don't think it's the end of the world. They are in a really tight race at the top of the West. But like kind of quietly, if they say they slide down to fourth, I don't hate being in fourth when the Warriors and the Lakers are maybe coming out of 7 and 8. Now maybe in the next round, if you get through, you'll really have wanted that home court, and that's something maybe we talk through later. But I don't think this is the biggest deal there. I think it's certainly not an Embiid to the Sixers level impact. They're not going to be falling down the standings like Philly has. I think it's an interesting moment. I mean, personally, betting wise, one thing I'm keeping an eye on. Jaden McDaniels rebounds. I bet that tonight, if you're following in the app, they put him at 3.5 rebounds tonight. He grabbed 8. And if you look at PBP, always struggle with that one. PBBstats.com, they'll show kind of the on-off for certain players. With Cat out, Jaden McDaniels really hits the glass hard. So I'm be looking at that as, the next month, I think we'll be riding that, even some of those all overs. And then on the flip side, Conley, he gets a lot of assists to Cat. I held off on that one tonight. I wanted to see if he was getting put into the pick and roll with Gobert a lot more. He only had 4 assists. I'll check out his potentials after the game, see if, they really were, not really running all that much pick and roll with Gobert, or what the deal is there. But those are 2 betting angles from a player prop side that I'm going to be checking out as well. But I don't think this is the end of the world for the Wolves. I think they can kind of survive this and hopefully not slip too far down. But if they slip a little bit, it's not going to be all the way to like 5, 6, 7. I don't think it's going to be still in that top tier where they're in decent shape and might even get a better matchup potentially.
Yeah, Jaden McDaniels line 11 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Little PRA might be in effect for him. He's actually been shooting it from 3 a lot better as well. So I love Jaden McDaniels' game, and he just fits this Timberwolves team quite a bit. Let's hope Cat gets back. We could talk about this game for 30 minutes straight. We could just do everything this. So I gotta rotate, and we gotta go talk the Miami Heat and the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas Mavericks get the W with the combination of the closeout power of Luka Doncic times Dante Exum down the stretch. They had no answer for Luka Doncic and what they wanted to do. They tried a bunch of different things, Turvey. Coming down the stretch of that game, they blitzed Luka, sent the double. He had no problem. This is my favorite thing about Luka, especially when it comes to crunch time stuff. He has no problem giving it up. I know everybody thinks he doesn't give it up and he just shoots it every time he has it, but he has no problem giving it up. Anytime he had one-on-one in the half court, he did whatever he had to do to get a shot and, of course, got a good look or made the right decision. Every single time they sent a double late in that game, he gave it up quick, fast, and in a hurry. And Dante Exum was big, had a couple shots down the stretch, hit a 3, hit a floater in the mid lane. The only essentially poor decision or accident turnover came when Kyrie stepped out of bounds in the corner to close. But then the very next possession, they get an offensive board, and Kyrie hits the 3 from the exact same spot. Talk to me about this game, this matchup. A lot of people are thinking, hey, the Miami Heat have everybody exactly where they want them. It's all, what's funny about the Heat, and when people talk about them, it's almost like the Heat are just like picking where they want teams to be in the
trying
East.
To lose a few
and
there.
They're like losing games the first half. So let's go ahead and Boston's going to get the 1. So I guess we'll let Milwaukee get the 2, and then we'll figure out and decide.
The puppet masters, right?
Yes, the puppet masters, the Miami Heat. Talk to me about this matchup. Now, Dallas had lost 5 of 6 coming in. We talked about it on Buckets last night that it was Albert Wing called it a kitchen sink game from Dallas, and they started off slow, but coming down the stretch, they were really balled in on both sides of the ball. The first or second possession of the game, Luka Doncic falls asleep and Jimmy gets an easy backdoor dunk. And I'm like, oh my God, Luka's already blowing assignments. Like he's tired in the fourth quarter. And it's like there's 10 minutes left in the first quarter. But they cleaned it up. They bought in later in the game, played a lot of good D, had a lot of good defensive possessions there. And they were able to get the W that they needed. Talk to me overall, because this was a singular game. Dallas was at home, got the win, really needed one. But I think I'm with the crowd, and especially Brian Fonseca, who's been talking about it for a long time, of the Action Network about Miami's coming. But I'm still very bullish on Dallas. Talk to me about the overall feeling for both Dallas coming out of the West and where they fall, and Miami coming up the ladder here with Philly dropping, New York dealing with injuries.
Yeah, for sure. So for me watching a game, I had Miami +5. So I was bumming when as soon as Luka hit that, like, I don't even know it wasn't even a shot. It was like a fling that shot he hit with like 2 or 3 minutes left. I was like, this bet's not hitting. As Duncan Robinson had to look at the buzzer, could have hit it, could have got me the cover at least, but alas, we move along. I'm honestly, both from tonight, obviously I was on the Heat, but also from a kind of looking ahead futures perspective. I'm higher on the Heat than the Mavs, especially as we look forward. He have a really easy remaining schedule. I've been on the Magic for a while for the division. Those guys are going to be neck and neck. They both have pretty easy schedules coming down the stretch here. I think they're like you said, Philly in free fall. We'll see about the Knicks. We'll talk about them in the second section here a little bit and whether they can bounce back a little bit. But they're still, even if Brunson comes back, they're still banged up. So I think there is the potential for this Heat team to make a little noise. And I do think it would be really funny if they matched up with the Celtics again. Via the 8, if they slip, maybe some guys go out and they slip a little bit in the standings, or in the second round as the 4 seed or something. I think either way, I'd love to see that series again and see, this Boston team has the feeling of a team that maybe is going to kind of check off some boxes en route to a finals, if not finals appearance, if not finals win. That would be a really big, boogeyman for them to cross off. The Heat have gotten the best of them a couple times. The Mavs, you pointed out Luka and how well he handled the down the stretch, and Luka is a very good player. I'm always like kind of the lowest on Luka. There's just something about it. Seems like his impact on the game. He is a great player. I mean, and he is very unselfish too. Talking about that's in the game where he had 73, he was still like passing, making like the right pass. And you're like, dude, just get to 80 points. I just want to see you reach the Kobe number. Like, come on here. But I there's something with the Mavs that always holds me back a little bit on them. I'm definitely not as high on them as some others. I just think in the West there's a lot of teams that I'd be looking at ahead of the Mavs. That being said, playoff Luka, I mean the guy's insane, and so I don't want to write them off, but I
was just gonna say, hold on, because let me I'll push back a little bit there just so we can have some fun. I'll play a little devil's advocate. Wasn't that last 5 minutes of Mavs Heat playoff basketball?
No, for sure.
That was exactly what you're going to see possession by possession in playoff hoops. And Luka was clamoring to get in the half court and just completely slow it down and not start doing any action until 14 seconds left in the shot clock. He couldn't wait to get the ball in his hand at the top of the key and just drain out clock. Isn't that what that's going to look like? Didn't he just kind of prove it maybe potentially – I have the shooters and the knockdown guys that can get it done, especially if Dante Exum's going to play like that, because the plan was clearly Dante Exum's going to have to knock down some shots for them to win this game, and he did. That was Spo said, yeah, let's just leave Dante Exum alone. That's fine. We'll double Luka, and if Luka wants to go to Dante Exum for the game, fine. But Dante was able to get it done. So it's just spooky when that guy has the rock in his hands, and we need a bucket. He's the best guy in the world right now that can do that.
No, it's a great point. And the Luka playoffness of it isn't what I doubt, I don't think. And it's not even the Kyrie-ness of it, because, from a long-term perspective, he's kept his head on this season. He's been playing great. And he's another dude who in the postseason, you're absolutely going to trust. He's the type of guy who can get a bucket when it's like 2 minutes left and no one can score because the defense is amped up to 1,000. Like, he's one of the 2 dudes you probably want. So from that perspective, I totally get it. But also I'll do you want Dante Exum taking those shots in the playoffs? I love Dante Exum, but he screams to me, the kind of guy who's going to make this in a big regular season game, but maybe in the playoffs, PJ Washington, same deal, coming over from Charlotte. He's been good for them. I don't know if I would trust the guys around them as much in the postseason, but it's nitpicking. It's definitely nitpicking because those 2 guys at the top are incredible. I love a couple of teams out west here, and especially Denver. I struggle to see that Dallas team taking out this Denver team. Maybe it happens, but I'm not going to put in like a Western Conference winner ticket on the Mavs, because I think they're a little overvalued in relation to the Nuggets, who I think are still undervalued somehow because they're just so good, and it's like it's hard to make them that good. You know what I mean?
No doubt about it. Luka Doncic 5 triple doubles in his last 8 games. Let's give you 5 quick minutes here. The 20 minutes that we were supposed to do, I was chirped and told. Shout out, I got Matt Mitchell. Now we were supposed to do 20 minutes. Let's do a quick 5 minutes on Denver though, because I do want to get your thoughts on that as they play and are up 8 right now as we record this over the Boston Celtics at home. It is hard to quantify how good Denver is, especially because there's pockets of the year where, Jamal Murray wasn't around or they weren't playing essentially that hard. But it's very clear right now in this stretch post All-Star break, they're completely locked in. They have been playing their best basketball of the year. And I've mentioned this before. It's almost like they just have to prove it to themselves. Like, hey, let's put together 15, let's put together 2 weeks of our best basketball, and let's see if we actually have that in our bag. Can we flip that switch and play top tier ball? Then, oh, okay, let's get a little bit of rest, and then let's start the playoffs, right? And I think that's the stretch we're on for the Denver Nuggets right now. They have been playing sensational. Talk to me about, I guess, try to quantify, because the funny thing is, we can quantify how good the Celtics have been. They're on a historic run, net rating wise, offense wise. Then that starts starting to bleed into how good they're playing defense. And Steph Curry made that comment that I thought was really telling was they came out and made those threes in the first quarter, and it was very demoralizing. And we were playing catch up, essentially, looking for home runs, and it affected how we wanted to run offense. And he even mentioned that was kind of how we used to do teams. That reminded me of us out there. So we can't quantify how good Boston has been on paper. They've been really good, and every single night they're a double-digit favorite, no matter where they are. They ended up closing the favorite here with Jaylen Brown going in Denver. That's how good they are. No one's a favorite in Denver. The Boston Celtics were a favorite coming in tonight. But talk to me about Denver and try to quantify how good you think those guys are and how you say they're potentially undervalued, where you can get them to win the West here at a solid plus money at BetMGM.
Yeah, I think they have a couple of turbo buttons. They're really hard to ignore. For one, Jokic averages about 33, 34 minutes during the regular season. He was playing 40, 41, 42 minutes in the finals. For a dude who looks like he does, he's in really good shape, and he really does have the stamina to make it through a postseason at that extended minutes limit. So, you get 8 more minutes of Jokic, who by the impact on off stats, it's like comical. Like the dude is like among the all-time greats when it comes to on-court impact. So if you get 8 extra minutes of that for one is something that, is very hidden in the numbers right now. Even though, by the way, like we both agree, they definitely have not, they're not at peak form. They're 42-20. They're a half game out of or they're one game in the loss column out of first in the West. So they're still playing well. And the other one is, and I think it's rare to see this, but Jamal Murray really is one of those dudes who kind of seems to play his best in the biggest games. And, having that as a teammate with Jokic, I just think that combo where Murray can really get up for these big games, he has absolutely no fear. Not that these other guys have fear. I think it's just that the shot making that he has and the ability to create space for him that Jokic has, that they play so well together. And then, so we're talking about Dallas earlier, right? And so we go Luka and Kyrie. I trust those dudes with my life in the playoffs for sure. But then after it gets a little sketchy, Michael Porter Jr., for his flaws, and he's already gotten cooked a couple times tonight just watching this game. You're like, oh man, MPJ, can we please just you were mentioning Luka getting cooked backdoor. I saw at least one MPJ getting cooked backdoor. But his shooting is not fraudulent. He's in big moments. I trust that dude shooting. Aaron Gordon is another guy who kind of makes them matchup proof because he's so athletic that he can handle if teams go smaller. But we saw in the finals when the Heat last year tried to go small on him, Aaron Gordon, his eyes lit up. He was just taking dudes in the post, night after night and really punishing them and making it so the Heat really couldn't go small. So, the bench, I think, is the big question for the Nuggets, but that a part of that's mitigated when you can run Jokic out there 40, 41, 42 minutes. Murray is a little bit less, he's not quite as durable. There's always fears that he can roll an ankle or something. So, but if this team is healthy, I just really don't see a team getting through them in the West, to be honest. They're so good.
Yeah, post All-Star break, 6-1 on the Denver Nuggets. Their net rating's 10.8. That's third in the NBA. The Boston Celtics net rating coming out of the break going into tonight was 21.3. They're 5-1.
Yeah, just comment.
That stretch.
The stuff they're doing. I mean, Jaylen Brown, I think Jaylen Brown is quietly, like, kind of, even though his points are way down, I think he's having his best season. He's playing some of his best defense. Some of the efficiency stuff, his like assist to turnover stuff, his shooting efficiency. I think having Derek White there to take a little bit of the pressure off him, and Porzingis too. But Derek White, I think, is like one of those dudes who just never
Derek
get the
White is unbelievable.
So
He's so awesome. There's been so many stretches during this year with how loaded that roster is, and we know how deep it is. I've felt very confidently that Derek White's the most important guy on the floor.
I agree 100%.
In stretches of big games and big spots, I'm like, dude, without this guy on the floor, this team would be there. There's no way they would win this game. And Derek White continues to just impact in a major, major way.
he like weirdly is a rim protector as a guard. Even tonight, he had a couple like chase down ball. He's just he's so smart. He's
He's
so good.
so
He's
good.
never out of rotation. He's just an incredible player. It was one of the best trades. Boston picking him up for a song was just amazing.
Yeah.
So,
And fellas, this is a sign. If you want to just cut your hair up and come to the bald side, like me and Derek White, you start to run at a higher capacity, baby. You can do it. It's a done deal. That's going to do it for the live edition of Buckets. Shout out my guy, Jim Turvey. Thank you so much for coming through. I'm your host, Sean Little. We are presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Go download the Action Network app if you haven't already. We'll be back for more. Mondays and Thursdays, the live show. We'll be back. You subscribe, like it, send this YouTube link to another friend, tell a friend, and tell another friend to subscribe. Once again, for Jim Turvey, I'm your host, Sean Little, Buckets Live Edition. We'll see you next time. What's good, my people? Welcome into Buckets, Action Network's daily NBA betting podcast. We're in the workshop Friday. Best bets. I am your host, Sean Little, along with Jim Turvey. We are presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. And Buckets is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Go download the Action Network app if you haven't. Everything you need to know about the Action Network app, or everything you need to know about sports betting, is in the Action Network app. We're going to be putting out tons of content here with the NBA playoffs right around the corner. The big dog, Brandon Anderson, he's back. He's announced it. He's coming to finally talk some NBA. I guess he's been hanging out, chilling, waiting for the perfect time to jump in with about 20 games left in the regular season. Brandon Anderson will be back. All right, quick heads up. The great state of North Carolina is launching sports betting this Monday, March 11th. So if you're in the Tar Heel State, take advantage of the best sign-up offers across every sports book. A link to all those offers is in this episode description. So if you're in North Carolina, go check that link out in the description of this episode. All right. You know the deal. We give the play, we give the cap, we get you guys out of here quick, fast, and in a hurry. Jim Turvey, give me your best bet for the Friday NBA slate.
I'm going to go with Pelicans first quarter spread. It's not out yet. We'll talk through some numbers there. And then I'm going to give you Jalen Johnson over assists. Same deal. We'll talk through some numbers there.
All right. I'm going to Madison Square Garden, New York Knickerbockers -1.5 versus the dangerous Orlando Magic. All right, Jim Turvey, coming right back to you. Let's talk about the first half play. Why are you looking at the first 24 minutes? And then we'll get into the prop.
Yeah, I like them first half. This specifically is first quarter game. We're shrinking it down even tighter. We're going first 12. The Pels have been awesome first quarter. They've been awesome first half in general. If you look at their net rating, they're about +10 in both first quarter and first half this season. So it's a team that really kind of charges out of the gates. I think it kind of matches with their personality, where the talent is always there. The question is, can they keep the focus for the full game, right? So I've been loving these Pelicans first quarter spreads. Season as a whole, they're 37-25 covering the spread in that first quarter. It's third best in the league. They're on the road on Friday, but that hasn't slowed them down at all. They're 19-13 against the spread first quarter on the season. They're playing the 76ers. This game opened up actually Pelicans -3.5. That was a really tasty number. Hope some of you caught it. It's already up to 7.5. The 76ers, we have seen them, really slide without Embiid. Maxey in concussion protocol last we heard. My guess is he's going to try and give this a go. But with concussion stuff, there's only so much giving it a go you can do. If your doctor says you can't go, you're on the sideline. So
there's not a lot of testing out you can do for the
no,
brain when it's
unfortunately
concussed, unfortunately.
But Philly is the inverse. They've really struggled to start games this season. They're 27-35 against the spread. And below 500, 15-18 at home. And those have been worse since Embiid has left. So they're 4-6, their last 10 home games, first quarter. That happens to be the exact same number of games that Embiid has missed. So since he's missed. They're even at home. They're 4-6 in those first quarters. Pels of late, even better. Their last 10, they're 8-2 first quarter on the road. So these guys just kind of charge out of the gate. This number, if we're looking at a 7.5 point spread, it's probably going to be something like 2.5, maybe 3.5, like plus 100, something like that. Some will depend if the line shifts based on Maxey. But I'm gonna like this number. What I love about these quarter markets is, I can kind of give them out on the show here. They're likely not going to move to an extreme. The trend is based on the closing number. So even at these closing numbers, the Pelicans have been really good in the first quarter. So I'm gonna like it 2.5, 3.5. I don't see any world in which it gets to 4.5. If it is, that probably means another player's out for Philly, like Tobias picked up an ankle or something. So
if
I'm
Tobias
looking.
misses, don't worry about it. It's
Yeah,
all. It's all.
this a wrap. I actually do think Pelicans in some alt spreads for the full game. Pelicans are a team that love blowing teams off the court, and Sixers are, not in a good place right now. So you look at Pelicans on some of those big, win by 20. If you can get a good plus money on that, that might be worth a look as well, because these Pelicans can really lay it on teams when they get out to a good start.
Yeah, listen, this is one of those spots where it's like, is Philly going to get up for the game? They're coming off two extremely bad losses. Yeah. I thought the Nets was going to be a bounce back spot, but I actually stayed off. Wasn't a bounce back spot. They lost. Then I'm like, there's no way. I got -5 on the Sixers versus the Grizz. I thought it was such a good spot. There's just no way. And then I didn't put enough on the handicap that there's legit guys on Memphis that are playing for their livelihood.
Yeah.
And guys that are on the Philadelphia 76ers aren't thinking about that. So they just wanted it more. They continued to play hard. Shout out Taylor Jenkins, man. He's got those guys. Whoever he has on the roster shows up and plays. And we were talking about this last night. Matt Moore mentioned it. Shout out Jaren Jackson Jr. He lost all his road dogs, and he still continues to show up on a night-to-night basis. So shout out to Memphis Grizzlies. I had to give them some love. But yeah, the cap here is, do these guys care enough to show up and try to avenge two terrible losses in a row at home for their fans? That's the only thing that makes me a touch nervous here. It's going to be Friday night. It's going to be a little bit of extra buzz in the building, or it could be anger, but there's going to be some energy from the Philadelphia 76er fans that are there. But the Pelicans have been playing some of the best ball in the NBA. They continue to solidify themselves as the real deal in the West. I was initially worried, like, hey, we have 10 good teams in the West, right? 2 of those guys aren't going to make it. My initial thoughts about a week ago were like, I'd probably go Pelicans Kings, right? But I mean, I have to put the Pelicans ahead of the Suns at the moment. If I had to pick the Pelicans or the Suns to make some noise or stay out of the play-in, potentially, I gotta lean Pelicans. They've been playing that well. I think the key too is last 10 games, 8-2 ATS for that number you laid out on the road in the first quarter. Let's hope the Pelicans continue to do what they've been doing, and the Philadelphia 76ers continue to show no pride in their game when they're led by Tobias Harris. Maxey should still be out with that concussion, as Turby mentioned. So always keep an eye on the injury report. All right, let's talk about the prop, Turb, and then I'll close it out with the Knicks.
Perfect. Yeah, the look here is Jalen Johnson. You're probably guessing that it has to do with Trae Young and his extended absence. That is correct. So since Trae Young went out, he's averaging 4.2, which doesn't seem like crazy high. But he has the most recent game, Jalen Johnson missed half of it, which I always love those spots when, the books are going to be looking for these like mini trends when a player like a Trae Young goes out. And then if you have a player who you're liking betting the prop, so he had 6, 7, and 7 in 3 of the games, then he missed half of last game. So that it deflates the number, even though, it doesn't really deflate. He had 4 assists in half a game. So you expand that out and he would have had 8 assists potentially, or maybe 6 or 7, but he was trending to beat his assist line for sure. And he also had 1 game with 0. So the 0 you write off as, that's the L. You're going to take the L. But he's clearing this number most nights. And he is very kind of clearly moved into that secondary playmaker role with Trae out. Murray is really putting up a lot of assists, a lot of potential assists. But Jalen Johnson's right there, second on the team. And he's had an outstanding season as a whole. He's really made a leap as a player. If he hadn't missed so many games in that kind of middle portion of the season, could even be looking at him as, giving Maxey a run for his money for most improved. But all assets of his game improved, and one of the big ones here is the playmaking. They're now really looking to him as a secondary playmaker with Trae Young out. So his assists per 100 jumped by about 20% with Trae off the court, again using pbbstats.com. So I'm looking at that assist number. There's nothing out there yet. Last game it was 3.5. It was a little juicy. And he cleared it, like I said, even in that like 19 minutes that he had. So I'll take the 4.5 as well. I might even sprinkle some of those alts up to 7 or 8. Like I said, he was tracking for about 8 assists if he had played the full game. So you definitely gotta wait. He left midway through the game with a little knickknack. I don't think it's anything serious. Make sure that he is in the lineup though, but they're not going to offer the prop unless he's playing. If he doesn't play, you don't have to worry. But I'm gonna like his assists over here for the Hawks on Friday night.
Yeah, I believe Quinn Snyder's trying to figure out who should have the rock in its hands
Yeah.
as much as possible. I think he's one of the guys that you do want the rock in his hands, and it's been proven to be a positive thing for the team that doesn't have their trigger man in Trae Young, and DeJounte Murray is the other guy. That's the playmaker, but he's solidified himself as the number 2 guy over there in a lot of aspects. So I do appreciate this play. All right, let's go to MSG and go with the New York Knickerbockers -1.5 versus the Orlando Magic. Now, let's talk about the Magic really quick before I then tell you why they're not going to win this game. They have been absolutely white hot. It's impossible to find a bad number against the spread for them because they're the best cover in the league, any which way you split it. On the road as a favorite, on the road as an underdog, anything you want to look at, the Orlando Magic have been covering the number. 42-21 against the spread, 66.7%. In their last 16 games, that's number 1 in the league, by the way. Second are the Oklahoma City Thunder, of course. Last 16 games, straight up, they're 13-3. The Orlando Magic have been playing phenomenal ball. But this is a tough spot, scheduling spot for them. Sometimes in the NBA, there's almost scheduled losses, and this is a really tough spot for the Orlando Magic. 4th game in 6 days, 3rd straight road game. And I believe the Knicks are going to focus on really making it hard on Paolo Banchero. 6 triples against them last time they played. He was 6 of 10 from 3. He's only done that 3 times in his career. It was an absolute big-time game from Paolo Banchero. And the Magic have actually kind of owned the Knicks this year. They're 0-3 against them. They're winning games by an average of like 10-plus points. So I think this is a big-time revenge spot for the Knicks to bounce back. And number 11 should be on the floor. I'm confident Jalen Brunson returns off the knee bump that he suffered in Cleveland. I'm confident that he's going to go. That's the only reason I'm backing the Knicks and the Knicks here in this spot is because I believe Jalen Brunson's going to be back. They need him on the floor. Also, I want to talk about this really quick. Julius Randle deserves some love. All the hate that he gets, Lord, Knicks fans can't wait for that guy to get back on the floor. So pipe down on any Julius Randle hate because now it's been a stretch where he's been off the floor, and boy, do they miss him. All right. They played 3 times this year, as I mentioned. Magic are 3-0. It was 10.3 points was the gap there, the margin of victory in those 3 games. But in the last one, no Dante DiVincenzo, no Bojan Bogdanovic, and no Isaiah Hartenstein. Those 3 guys should go along with Jalen Brunson. The Knicks are going to be rested. They haven't played a game since Tuesday. They're 7-5 against the spread when coming off 2 or 3 days of rest. The rest was very much needed, especially for guys like Josh Hart, who have been playing 40-plus minutes, 42-plus minutes a night, trying to work and grind through these injuries until they get back. Knicks also 14-10-1 ATS coming off a loss. I love that number for the New York Knicks. I think with Brunson coming back at home, shout out our guy Jay Money, 3 times revenge spot here for the New York Knicks. But I do think they'll be coming in ready, focused, ready to play against a team that they've been getting beat up by all year long. I expect the Knicks to bounce back, get a W here with Jalen Brunson on the floor. If you don't want to lay the 1.5, I'm not mad if you take the money line. I think this is a first half full game win for the New York Knicks. I think they're going to come out and be ready to go, led by Jalen Brunson. Any thoughts on me taking and fading the white hot Magic and taking the Knicks here, Jim Turvey?
Yeah, I think the look really obviously centers around is if Brunson's coming back. And I think we both think that if he's going to be even close to able to go, he's going to be out there. And we always talk in football kind of about stacking injuries, right? Where there's like a certain position where, you have two offensive linemen out, it hurts, exponentially more than one. You got two receivers out, exponentially more than one. The Knicks basically have like a starting lineup worth of players out right now. You mentioned Randall. They still have Mitchell Robinson from forever ago out, and they have OG Anunoby out. Do they have four potential starters out right now? And each one of those guys, one guy might be worth 2 points. The next guy individually is worth maybe 1 point, but when he's the second guy, it's maybe 2 points. When you get to the fourth guy and it's Jalen Brunson, that's
Right.
almost that's like an amount that I think the books would really struggle to like that. To me, that's like a Brunson on his own is maybe a 3-4 point player, but when he's your fourth starter out, then it gets to like a 6-7 point swing to the point that it's really hard for the books to cook that in. So I think
Yeah.
he is a big pivot point, and I think we both think he'll be back. So I mean, the Magic have been awesome, but they've been beaten up on bad teams too. That's kind of my love of them from the futures market has been that they have this really soft schedule. Like so you rattled off, you said how good they've been. They have been great. Here are
Yeah.
their wins though of late. They beat the Pistons, the Nets, the Jazz, the Pistons, the Wizards. Those teams they lost to the Hawks, and the Hawks are the best of those teams, which is a very low bar. The Knicks in this state are better than the Hawks for sure. So this will be, a little bit of a mini test for them on what has been a softer schedule. So yeah, I don't hate the play at all for sure.
Yeah. I think this is a good spot for the Knicks to get a W at home against a team that is very physical, very young, don't seem to get tired, but 4 and 6 days,
4 and 6 is
three straight
tough,
on the
man.
road is very difficult. And I expect a rested Knicks team to blitz these guys, especially with Jalen Brunson coming back. I'm confident he goes. All right. To recap, Jim Turby, give me your two. I forgot to write them down.
No, all good. Pelicans first quarter spread. We're looking at 2.5, maybe 3.5 there. And Jalen Johnson assists. We're gonna go over 3.5, even 4.5, if they give us that number as well.
And then I'm going to go New York Knicks -1.5 at home versus the Orlando Magic. For Jim Turvey, I am your host, Sean Little. We are presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Until next time, get buckets, baby. We'll see you.